necessary to get one, or why is it necessary to have one? In the United States, it's not possible to rent, it's not possible to many times even make certain purchases. It becomes very difficult to go out when you go to rent a vehicle or other things if I don't have a credit score, right? And credit scores are based off of the lending that I take and that I'm involved with in my day-to-day life. How do I build up my credit score? And one of the strongest, one of the easiest means to do that is through getting a credit card. And this is why you have a number of scholars who actually allow taking part in the credit card. There are some conditions though, because the credit card is something that, as many of us know or might have experienced, the APR is significantly high, and this is by ittifaq, by agreement, that this is something that actually falls into riba. So how do I deal with it on a personal basis, as an individual, to make sure that I'm able to navigate my life here in the United States, and to make sure that I don't fall into riba? One of the easiest things to do it is to treat my credit card as an ATM card, right? That's the easiest way to do it. If I find myself overspending every month and I find myself having that inclination, then I need to re-examine how I am dealing with. I can lower my spending limit. This is one way of controlling it. Or if I don't have control altogether, then at this point for me, it becomes haram. As an individual for me, because I don't have that personal control. But if I have that personal control, if I'm using it as an ATM card, then I would say that it is highly recommended that this person actually get one, right? Because there are certain warranties that are applied, there are certain insurances that are applied, there are certain protections that are applied on all of these different purchases. And many scholars will say the maslaha here overcomes the mafsada, or the potential benefits that come with utilizing this tool are far outweigh the potential harms that utilize it. Because what are the harms? The harms, again, like we said, is actually paying riba, right? Is actually paying riba if I'm ever late or if I ever default. So it's very important for us to always have that positive mentality, to make sure that we are fulfilling things, make sure that we are trying to spend within our limits, to make sure that we're not overspending, to make sure that we have that balance, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the ability for that. The second question that I had received previously was about life insurance. And life insurance is something that it has become relatively common, and for many individuals it has become pretty affordable. You have a number of scholars, again, who will say that it is not permissible because this is bay al-majhul. You don't know what it is that you're actually purchasing, right? So, and it could be a type of gambling, it could be a type of maysar, because they say, well, in terms of cost and in terms of value, well, there's a cost that's associated with it, but what is the value that I'm actually getting out of this? And then you have other scholars say, no, well, you actually do know what it is that you're purchasing, right? What am I purchasing in a term life insurance policy? I'm purchasing coverage for a particular event that can happen. And does Islam cover incidentals? Is there an idea or is there a concept for incidentals in Islam? Absolutely. We call it diya, right? So we have a blood money system in Islam. If an individual loses a finger, if he loses a tooth, if he loses any of these things, there is always going to be somebody that is liable for that. And there is going to be financial compensation for that. So this idea of incidentals is not something that is foreign to Islam. How it's implemented is what's different, right? So it's usually implemented with an Islamic system on the state level. Now the question is, if we don't have that state who is going to come and enforce these things, how do we deal with these incidentals? How do we deal with these problems? What if we create a voluntary pool, right? So if we say like 20 people in here say, okay, we're going to create a voluntary pool and we're going to put that money in the pool. And when we put that money in the pool, if la sabahullah something happens to somebody who's contributing to this, then this money will go to that. And this is the idea behind the takaful ijtima'i, right? This is the idea behind these insurance policies, or the life insurance policies, or term life insurance policies, whatever the case might be. The other alternative to this, and this is something that I've seen is very unfortunate, is that when individuals don't take out term life insurance, I'm not talking about the full plans, the term life insurance is something like, there are a couple things that we as Muslims should do. Number one, we should always plan for the future and plan for our children. This is something that is fundamentally and vitally important. So I need to make sure I have investments in place. So fala samahullah, if I died today, right? We should all plan as if we are going to die today. What is my family going to do? Do they have enough needs? Are their needs going to be met for the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? And it all depends on what my planning is and how I'm strategizing. What has happened in our community in the past? And not just this one, in other communities. People will say, okay, well, life insurance is haram, And then what happens is that I will see a picture of my wife, I will see a picture of my children on GoFundMe, on crowdsourcing, on all of these other outlets. And is this a way to protect the honor of the Muslims? How many of us here is willing to raise our hand right now saying that I want a picture of my wife, I want a picture of my children, so that you can donate to me because I was the main financial provider? And this is something that we have to think about. If Islam came to preserve the honor of the Muslims, are we preserving our honor by avoiding this? Other scholars will also say that purchasing life insurance is similar to purchasing a security guard. You might utilize him, you might not. And having that safety net is something that is important. And again, if it's okay for me to do it voluntarily, why is it a problem when I buy into something, when I'm creating this pool? Other arguments might be like, well, that life insurance company, they invest my money into other things. Once I purchase a service, whether it be from AT&T, whether it be from Apple, whether it be from any company, whatever that company does with that money is their business. Ideally, and please don't misunderstand, ideally, I would want to invest in those companies that are doing good with their money, right? Ideally. But how many of us here have iPhones? How many of us here have Android phones? Does any of us call up Apple or Google to make sure that they're using our money in the right way? And if we don't use those same criteria for other business transactions, how come we apply those rules and those criteria when it comes to other types of transactions? We have to be consistent in our principles. We have to understand what is going to happen and the potential harms behind us being involved in something and not being involved in something. Nobody here promotes gambling. Nobody here promotes haram. Nobody here loves riba. This is not the characteristic of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. These are all things that we want to fight. But the question is, do we fight them through the system or do we fight them outside the system? And if we fight them through the system, what is the best means of doing that? And if we fight them outside the system, what is the best means of doing that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have created a framework for us to navigate our day-to-day lives. The Sharia did not come to strangle us, ya akhwan. It came to empower us. It came to give us light, it came to give us nur. And we have to make sure that we're utilizing that light and we're utilizing that nur. Saying that, I'm not here to impose on anyone. If you're not comfortable doing something, don't do it. It's very simple. All of us as individuals need to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And every single one of us will be accountable for what we claim, for what we said, and for what we did. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqi nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.